Dobro. History. Archive.
Okay, so let's start this deep dive with a number. 52 seconds.
52 seconds, that's it.
That's all the time it took for the Apollo 12 mission to go from, in the commander's own words, a lovely liftoff to a full-blown nightmare.
Right. I want you to really try and picture this. You are Commander Pete Conrad. You're strapped into a chair on top of basically a 36-story controlled explosion.
A Saturn V rocket, the most powerful machine ever built. And you're climbing at this just incredible rate, over 1,500 feet every single second. The force, the noise,
Yeah.
it's all part of the plan.
Exactly. You're focused. But then at that 52-second mark, that perfect machine it becomes a blind, screaming metal coffin.
The whole spacecraft just convulses, right?
Yeah.
And the sound changes. It's not the roar of the engines you're focused on anymore.
No, now it's the master alarm, this high-pitched, shrill sound that is specifically designed to induce panic, to tell you something has gone catastrophically wrong.
And your control panel, the one thing that connects you to the health of your ship, becomes completely useless.
Worse than useless. The sources describe it as a blinding Christmas tree of flashing red and yellow lights. Every single warning light, except for the main engines, is on at once.
They said it was so bright they couldn't even read the labels underneath the switches. They were literally blinded by the warnings.
And the most critical system of all is gone. Their primary guidance, the platform that tells them which way is up. It's just tumbling, spinning uselessly.
So they are what did the report call it? A blind, dumb bomb, climbing into space with no idea where they are or which way they're pointing.
And this is the moment of truth. Pete Conrad's hand is inches from the abort handle. It's a T-shaped grip.
One twist. That's all it would take.
One twist and a series of solid rocket motors fire and rip the command module away from the failing rocket. The mission's over. You splash down in the Atlantic.
But here's the paradox we're diving into today. Every single light, every technical reading that's failing is screaming at him. Abort now.
It's the only logical thing to do. You've lost power, you've lost guidance, you've lost telemetry. And yet, he doesn't pull it. He waits. He makes this 1.5-second wager with his life, his crew's lives, everything.
Why? Why that choice? How did they survive what was, the most bizarre and complete electrical failure in NASA history?
And it wasn't saved by a checklist. There was no procedure for this. It was saved by this perfect, almost impossible chain reaction of human memory, quick thinking, and maybe most of all, curiosity.
So this deep dive is all about that crisis. It's a mission that was almost doomed before it even cleared the tower, thanks to a really controversial launch decision.
And the fix, the thing that saved it all, came from a 24-year-old kid in mission control who remembered something from a canceled training drill a year before. It's a story of how human competence can beat digital chaos.
Okay, let's get into it. To understand what happened in that cockpit, you have to understand the chain of events that put them there. And that chain starts with this crew and their unique vibe.
Yes. The sources are really clear on this. Apollo 12 had a completely different energy than Apollo 11.
Right. If you think of Neil Armstrong's crew, they were, stoic, serious, very focused on the historic weight of it all.
Apollo 12 was the all-Navy crew. You had Pete Conrad, Dick Gordon, and Alan Bean, test pilots through and through. But they were known as the chummiest crew in the program. They were there to have fun.
They definitely felt like they had something to prove, but in this, relaxed, confident way. They knew that ship inside and out. The sources say they were raring to go.
And they trained for everything.
Yeah.
Exhaustively. That point is so critical when we get to Alan Bean's part in this story. They really felt they could handle anything the rocket could throw at them.
But that confidence immediately ran up against the reality on the launch pad, the morning of November 14th, 1969.
Yeah, this was not your picture-perfect blue sky Florida launch day. Not at all. It was dark, rain-swept, gray, just heavy. You could feel the weather in the air.
And we're not talking about a little bit of rain. We're talking about a specific, very dangerous weather phenomenon.
Right. NASA had what they called an iron rule. It was written into the safety protocols developed over years of, things going wrong. And the rule was, you do not launch into a cumulonimbus cloud, period.
You just don't fly a 363-foot metal tower full of explosive fuel into a thunderstorm. It sounds like common sense.
It is. And the physics behind it are really important for what happens next. A Saturn V rocket is, well, it's a giant metal rod. And when it launches, it creates this huge plume of superheated ionized gas behind it.
It's basically a tail of electrically charged particles thousands of feet long.
Exactly. So what happens when you take that giant metal rod with its conductive tail and you punch it straight into a heavily charged thundercloud?
You create a path, a highway for electricity.
You basically create the world's longest, most expensive lightning rod. And you're just asking for that massive electrical potential in the cloud to find a way to the ground.
The weather guys on the ground knew this. They were raising the alarm.
They were. The weather criteria were definitely being violated, or at the very least pushed to the absolute limit. But this is where the human element, the pressure, comes into the story.
The first link in the chain. And it's not a technical one.
No, it's political. You have to remember the context. Apollo 11 was this huge, unprecedented global triumph. Apollo 12 was the follow-up act. It had to prove that getting to the moon wasn't a one-off fluke.
It was the middle child mission. Stuck between the historic 11 and the near disaster of 13, NASA needed it to go smoothly to prove this was a repeatable, reliable process.
And there was huge institutional pressure. President Nixon herself was there, watching, standing under an umbrella.
You can't just scrub the launch with the president watching. It looks like you're not ready. It looks weak. It would have been a PR nightmare.
And it would have made getting funding for later Apollo missions that much harder. So the sources say the technical weather concerns were overruled by senior management.
They made a judgment call. They hoped they could punch through the worst of it before the physics caught up with them.
And so, despite that ironclad rule, the countdown continued. They made the decision to go. And that decision, to choose momentum over the safety protocol, is what directly sets up the crisis just 52 seconds later.
Yeah.
They were flying straight into an electrical trigger.
Okay, so 11:22 a.m. liftoff. The Saturn V ignites. And on the comms, the crew is just cool as ever.
Yeah. Conrad's voice is totally calm. It's a lovely liftoff, roll program complete, everything is textbook, perfect, for about half a minute.
And that perfection ends at 36.5 seconds. The rocket is at about 6,600 feet, and it punches right into that thick, charged cloud layer.
And the moment that massive metal rocket hits that cloud, physics just takes over, instantly.
Strike one. A massive arc of electricity, millions of volts, goes right down the length of the vehicle.
The crew feels this huge physical jolt. You can hear it on the voice recorder. Dick Gordon just yells, "What the hell was that?"
And immediately, the master alarm starts screaming in the cockpit.
But that was just the warning shot. The real damage comes 15.5 seconds later. They're still trying to figure out what just happened from the first strike.
When Stripe 2 hits,
Yeah.
at 52 seconds, and this one was devastating.
This is the one that should have ended the mission. The lightning surge is so massive, it takes out the primary guidance system, the entire inertial measurement unit, the IMU.
That's the heart of their navigation, right? It's the thing that tells them where they are.
It's their internal compass, their gyroscope. It powers the 8-ball on the dash, that little globe that shows their attitude. And after strike 2, that 8-ball is just spinning uselessly. They have no idea which way they're pointing.
And the electrical system just dies.
It goes critical. The surge takes all 3 of their main fuel cells offline. And these aren't just batteries. The fuel cells are what generate all the power for the spacecraft in flight. They're gone.
Which causes this cascade of other failures. Main bus A and main bus B gone.
And to put that in simple terms for our listeners, those are the 2 main power grids for the entire command module. Losing both at once means all your redundant systems have failed.
So what are they running on?
They're running on the 3 tiny, non-rechargeable re-entry batteries, the batteries that are only supposed to power the capsule for the last couple hours of the mission on the way home, not an entire ascent into orbit.
So the power is dead, guidance is dead, the panel is a wall of light. And you can hear Conrad just so calmly reading off this list of failures. It's surreal.
Yeah, his call-out is just this rapid-fire litany of doom.
I got 3 fuel cell lights, an AC bus light, a fuel cell disconnect, AC bus overload 1 and 2, main bus A and B out.
I mean, any one of those should have been enough to consider an abort. All of them at once. It's a no-brainer.
It should be. When you lose both AC buses, that suggests a complete breakdown of the entire electrical system.
And yet, we come back to that moment. Conrad is reading this list. The abort handle is right there. He doesn't touch it.
Yeah.
Why? This is that test pilot psychology. The post-mission debriefs are fascinating. He said he never even considered an abort.
Never even considered it.
His focus wasn't on the electricity, it was on the feeling. He could still feel that immense gut-punching thrust of the Saturn V's engines pushing him skyward. As long as he felt that push, he knew the most important part of the machine was still working.
He figured the problem was just in their little capsule, not the whole 36-story rocket underneath them.
Exactly. His biggest fear, and he said this, wasn't blowing up. His fear was winding up in orbit with that dead spacecraft. It was the fear of mission failure, not the fear of death.
Wow.
And that gut feeling was backed up by one single piece of data from Dick Gordon. In the middle of all that chaos, Gordon looks at his instruments and he says the crucial thing. All we've got's the GDC.
GDC, the gyro display coupler.
It's the backup, a manual system. But the important thing is where the GDC was getting its information from. It was getting it from the Saturn V's instrument unit, the rocket's brain.
And the rocket's brain wasn't in the command module with them.
No, it was housed separately, way down the rocket stack. And critically, it ran on its own completely independent electrical system. It was totally untouched by the lightning strikes.
So the rocket was flying perfectly straight, the booster was fine, the crew was just along for the ride in a dead-brained capsule.
They had an electrical problem to solve, not a rocket problem to escape from, which is a huge distinction. But the question now is, how do you fix a ship you can't even see properly?
And that question was now also being asked 200 miles away in Houston, where a rookie flight director was about to have the worst day of his career.
So now we shift the scene. Mission Control, Houston. And here, the crisis isn't blinding lights, it's an information blackout. But worse.
Right, and the person in the hot seat is Jerry Griffin. It's his first ever launch as a flight director. Talk about a trial by fire.
When that lightning hits, the telemetry, that constant stream of data from the spacecraft, it doesn't just stop. That would be bad, but it would be a known problem.
Instead, it keeps flowing, but it's gibberish. It's nonsensical.
And we have to really sit with that for a second. Losing a signal is one thing. Receiving a signal that is actively lying to you is 1,000 times worse. Your tools are telling you things that can't be true.
What were some of the specific readings they were getting? The sources had some really wild examples.
Oh, they're fantastic. Controllers were seeing things like a fuel tank that had a negative amount of fuel in it.
Negative fuel. Impossible.
A compass showing the ship had turned 380 degrees. Also impossible. Voltage readings that were somehow both too high and too low at the same time. The data was just insane.
So Griffin is staring at this digital chaos. He can hear Pete Conrad calmly listing off a dozen critical failures, and his own screens are confirming it with impossible physics. The pressure on him must have been immense.
He's quoted as saying he was almost certain that he would soon be forced to call an abort. What else could he do? He had no good information.
And the clock is ticking. The whole room is scrambling, but they're flying completely blind. They're relying on data that means nothing.
And in that moment, everyone in that room turns to one console, one person. The 𝐃𝐿1.
The Electrical, Environmental, and Consumables Manager. Basically, the person in charge of every single volt and amp on that ship.
And the person sitting at that console is a 24-year-old named John Aaron, the youngest guy in the room. And the entire mission now rests on his shoulders.
And Aaron is looking at his screen, seeing this same ratty data, these squirrely kind of numbers. And this is where the story turns, because he recognizes it.
This is the moment. He sees this specific pattern of impossible numbers, and something clicks in his memory.
But how? They never simulated a double lightning strike. It was a scenario they'd never even considered, let alone trained for.
He hadn't seen it in a simulation. He'd seen it in an accident a year earlier.
Okay, you have to tell us this backstory. It's incredible.
So about a year before Apollo 12, John Aaron is in mission control late one night, just running a routine simulation. All of a sudden, the building itself has a power drop, just a flicker, but it's enough to crash the simulation for the night.
So it's late, the sim's over, most people would just pack up and go home.
But not Aaron. When his console flickered back on, before it fully reset, he saw that same weird pattern of gibberish data flash across his screen for just a second.
And instead of just rebooting, he got curious.
That's the key word, curiosity. He spent hours that night, long after everyone else left, poking his nose into the system, trying to figure out why a power failure in the building created that specific stream of garbage data on his console.
He starts digging through the schematics.
And he traces the glitch to this single, very obscure piece of hardware called the SCE.
The signal conditioning equipment. Let's break that down because it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple.
It is. The SCE is basically a translator. It takes all the raw data from the sensors on the spacecraft, voltage, pressure, temperature, all of it, and it conditions it. It translates it all into the one standard digital format, 0 to 5 volts, that the computers can actually read.
So it's the gatekeeper for every piece of information that comes from the ship to the ground. If the SCE messes up, everything it translates is also messed up.
And that's what Aaron figured out. The power drop in the Houston building a year ago had confused the SCE in the simulation, causing it to spit out that specific pattern of nonsense.
Now, fast forward a year. The lightning streak on Apollo 12 is a totally different event. But to the hardware, the result is the same, a massive voltage drop.
A massive voltage drop that causes the exact same protective circuit on the SCE to trip, shutting down the translator. And it generated the identical digital signature he'd seen a year before. He wasn't seeing a dying ship, he was seeing an offline translator.
He knew what was wrong with the data.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant he could guess what was wrong with the ship.
Right. But now he has to communicate this incredibly obscure fix to a room full of people who are seconds away from calling an abort.
Okay, so back in Mission Control, the tension is just unbearable. It's been 60 seconds since the first strike. Griffin's finger is basically on the abort button.
And John Aaron knows he has seconds to act. He leans into his microphone, and he makes what is probably the most counterintuitive call in NASA history. Flight, ECOM, try SCE to O.
SCE to O. 3 letters and a word. And nobody knows what he's talking about.
The flight director, Jerry Griffin, literally says back, "What's that?" You can hear the Capcom on the loop asking someone, "What the hell's that?"
This switch is so obscure, it's not on a single launch emergency checklist. It's not a big red button. It's a deep-level system switch.
And Griffin has to make a choice. Trust the 24-year-old kid in the room with a command he doesn't understand, or abort the second moon landing.
And the sources say his leadership here was just phenomenal. He doesn't argue. He doesn't ask for an explanation. He trusts his expert.
He makes the call. He tells the Capcom to send it up. Apollo 12, Houston, try SCE to auxiliary. Over.
And that confusion just travels right up into orbit. Pete Conrad hears his command, and he's just as lost as everyone on the ground. His response is, SCE to O, what is that?
So now the whole mission is hanging by this thread. The ground knows the fix but can't do it. The commander is ready to abort but doesn't know the switch. The ship is dying.
But there's a third person in that cockpit. Alan Bean, the lunar module pilot. And he's been quiet this whole time, just listening.
And his job during ascent is systems engineer. He's the one watching the electrical panels.
And here's the second piece of just sheer luck in this story.
It's incredible. Bean also remembered that switch, not from Aaron's simulation, but from a different training run he'd done a year earlier. He'd run into that exact obscure switch during a systems checkout.
So while Conrad is still asking, what is that? Alan Bean is already moving.
Powered by muscle memory. He knows exactly where that tiny switch is on that massive, complicated control panel. He reaches over, finds it, and flips it.
And the result is immediate.
It's instantaneous. In Houston, the screen full of ratty data just vanishes. The telemetry becomes perfectly clean and logical.
And in the cockpit, you just hear the relief in Conrad's voice. A minute and 56 seconds after the strike, he shouts, "We got all the buses back online."
But here's the amazing part, the most elegant twist in the whole story.
Flipping that switch didn't actually fix the ship.
Not even close. That's the beautiful part. All 3 main fuel cells were still offline. The ship was still running on those tiny backup batteries.
So what did the switch do?
It fixed the monitors, it fixed the translator. That SCE hardware had an automatic undervoltage protection circuit. It had sensed the lightning strike, and to protect itself, it shut down.
And flipping the switch to auxiliary just bypassed that protector.
It forced the translator back online. It didn't fix the patient, but it unblinded the doctors. Now, with clean data, Mission Control could finally see the real problem.
And the real problem was actually much simpler than the chaos suggested.
Much simpler. The lightning had tripped the main circuit breakers connecting the fuel cells to the power buses. The cells weren't broken, they were just disconnected.
And that is a checklist procedure.
Exactly. So panic is over. Now it's just calm, methodical engineering. Mission Control calmly radios up the instructions. Apollo 12, check your circuit breakers, all the main bus ties.
And Alan Bean, the systems guy, just goes through and resets them.
And at 2 minutes and 24 seconds, he confirms, fuel cells are coming back in. The ship is alive, the guidance gets realigned, the mission is saved.
Less than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
From catastrophic failure to full recovery, it's an incredible demonstration of competence under pressure.
It really is this perfect chain of competence, like the reports call it. Every single person played a critical role.
You start with Conrad. He had the guts, the test pilot instinct, not to pull that abort handle because he trusted the feel of the rocket.
Then you have Dick Gordon, who provided that one single piece of good data, the GDC, that confirmed the rocket was flying straight.
Then John Aaron, the 24-year-old on the ground, who provided the crucial knowledge because he got curious about a glitch a year earlier.
Jerry Griffin, the rookie flight director, who provided the trust. He made a call he didn't understand because he trusted his team.
And finally, Alan Bean in the cockpit, who provided the execution, the muscle memory to find that one switch in a sea of blinking lights.
And when you look at it all together, the mission wasn't saved by a computer. It wasn't saved by a pre-written plan. It was saved by this chain of human observation, memory, and a culture that valued investigating every little anomaly.
Aaron got the nickname the Steely-Eyed Missile Man after that. But the real lesson is that the biggest threat wasn't the lightning strike itself. It was the information failure, not being able to see the problem clearly.
It's really remarkable when you think about it. In a moment of just total information overload, of digital chaos, the solution came from a footnote, from an accidental previous experience.
The lightning was the problem, sure, but the vulnerability was the translator, the SEE.
And that really brings us to our final thought for you as you go back into your own world, which is just as full of complex data. Think about that gibberish data they were seeing. Negative fuel, a 380-degree turn.
The whole crisis was solved only when they stopped reacting to the screaming alarms and paused long enough to fix the thing that was feeding them the bad information.
Only then could they see the simple reality underneath it all, a few tripped circuit breakers.
So how often in our own lives, in our work, do we react to what is essentially gibberish data? We panic based on a bad signal, instead of pausing to ask, is the translator working correctly?
And what's your SCE to O switch? What's that obscure piece of knowledge you're holding onto from some past experience that seemed irrelevant at the time?
Because that might be the thing that saves a future failure when all the main systems are blinking red.
The lesson of Apollo 12, I think, is that the most critical preparation often happens by accident, driven by someone's curiosity to figure out why something small went wrong when no one else was watching.
A chain of competence built on curiosity. An amazing story. Thanks for diving deep with us on this one.